eyes on God by singing psalms. He remembers that God is his refuge and strength, a very present help in time of trouble. He also finds encouragement from the people that come to him. About 400 people come to him in the wilderness right away. The Bible says any Israelites who are distressed, in debt, or discontented. Basically, anyone who hates or fears Saul. David's own older brothers and their sons, his nephews. It's a pretty motley crew for David to be leading. But it's good practice for the future. David learns to love and serve all the highly imperfect people around him because God loves them. These people are angry. These people want Saul dead. These people have suffered injustice. These people are hungry. And David helps them. This is where we start to see the growth of David, the man of mercy. David really develops a heart to serve those in need. He becomes a good shepherd to the flock of God. The natural human tendency is to surround ourselves with people who are just like us. Same religion, same political party, same social class, same level of education. God calls us to go beyond that and form friendships of all kinds of people. Whoever we find ourselves surrounded by in life. Wonderful family, difficult family. Wonderful friends and colleagues, difficult friends and colleagues. We get to love and serve them because that's what God does. David had a generous, open heart with his crew of disgruntled people. And we're called to have a generous, open heart with all the people around us as well. So, now, we've got Robin Hood and his band of merry men. God also sent David a prophet and a priest. He sent the prophet Gad, who probably wrote some of this source material for 1st and 2nd Samuel. God also sends him the priest Abiathar, son of Ahimelech, the martyr of Nob. Abiathar is the only survivor of the massacre of the priests at Nob. And he goes, David, I'm with you. I got nowhere to go. So Gad and Abiathar set up shop with David. And they are very good at letting David know when to move on, when to hide, where to hide, and what to do next. And without even trying, David's now got all the trappings of a king in exile. He's got followers. We got a prophet, priest, and king right here. Saul, meanwhile, remains obsessed with killing David. Saul used to be the defender of Israel, who would protect Israel from its enemies. And now, he's using the army to kill Israel's priests and hunt down David night and day. How does David respond to Saul's hatred?
He's the anointed one.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. David will not harm him. He will not lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. How do we respond when people hate us?
We don't like them.
We don't like them. Yeah, do you think David liked Saul? The easy thing to do with people who hate us is hate them back. But David didn't go there. David had a hot temper, as we have seen and as we will see, but it never lasts. It seems to burn out quickly. David's capacity for mercy and forgiveness was massive. There's a couple of fun stories about how David spares the life of Saul. One time, when Saul's chasing David, when Saul goes into a cave to answer nature's call, David and some of his men are hiding at the back of the cave. Some of the men start whispering to David, "You got him, he's yours. God's giving him to you, go get him." So David sneaks up on Saul, takes out his knife, and cuts off part of the back hem of Saul's robe. David's men are furious. "Why did you let him go?" And David says, "I will not raise my hand against the Lord's anointed." And he won't let his men attack Saul either. David waits until Saul leaves the cave and goes down the hill, and then he goes to the mouth of the cave and shouts, "My lord, the king!" David bows to the ground. He then gets up, holds up the hem of Saul's robe in his hands. "Why do you listen to men who say, 'David seeks your hurt'? God put your life in my hands today, and I spared you. Some people wanted me to kill you, but I said, I will not raise my hand against the Lord's anointed. May the Lord judge between me and you, Father. May the Lord avenge me upon you, but my hand shall never be against you." Saul wept. "David, my son." Saul said, "You are more righteous than I. You have repaid me good for evil. And now I know that you will surely be king." And Saul goes home for about 3 days. And David remains in the wilderness. He is, however, horribly guilt-stricken over ruining Saul's nice robe. He's like, "I kind of laid my hand on the Lord's anointed. Maybe I shouldn't have done that after all." Another time, David and his nephew Abishai sneak down into Saul's camp in the middle of the night. Abishai says, "Let me pin Saul to the ground with one blow of his own spear." But instead, David takes Saul's spear and the water jug right beside his head and tiptoes out of camp. In the morning, David calls down from the hill to Saul's army commander. "Abner! Hey, Abner! Why haven't you been keeping watch over the king of Israel? Someone could have killed him!" And David lifts up Saul's spear and water jug. And Saul replies, "David, my son!" And David gives his speech. "Why does my Lord pursue after his servant? What have I done?" And Saul says, "I have done wrong. Return to court, David, my son. Come home, and I will do you no more harm, because my life today was precious in your sight." David replies, "As your life was precious in my sight, so may my life be precious in the sight of the Lord. I am staying right here, thank you very much." And once again, they go their separate ways. David doesn't go with Saul. He knows that Saul's paranoia is going to return again all too soon. Twice, David grandly spares Saul's life. And in those moments, David brings the gospel to life. He loves his neighbor. He prays for those who persecute him. He practices nonviolent resistance to evil. He turns the other cheek. And because he's David, he does it with panache. Who do we need to pray for? Praying for those who hate us sometimes changes them, and it always changes us. Who do we need to pray for? Here's another thought. How can we be outrageously generous to someone who's hurt us? Sometimes grand acts of kindness will bring a person to their senses, just like David momentarily brought Saul to his senses. Now, reconciliation wasn't possible for them. David still had to stay away from Saul for his own safety and well-being. But David did forgive Saul for ruining his life. He forgave Saul over and over again. If we're going to forgive someone who's hurt us, let's do it boldly. Let's not do it grudgingly. Let's do it like David. Let's do it with style. We have time for one last short story. We're going to end today with the love story of David and Abigail. David, in the wilderness, now he's got about 600 men, and he is responsible for making sure they somehow stay fed and clothed. That must have been a nearly impossible task. Normally, outlaws in hiding, they just pillage the countryside, take crops, steal cattle, turn to banditry. But David refuses to let his men become actual outlaws. Instead, they do the opposite. They fight bandits. They keep the roads safe. They fight cattle rustlers. They protect local flocks and herds from wild animals. At one point, they even liberate the Israelite city of Keilah from the Philistines, and then they have to escape back into the wilderness before the people of the city can turn them into Saul. That's just crazy. While Saul and his army are busy hunting David down, David and his men are busy being the real protectors of Israel, at least their corner of it. But now, they're hungry. It's sheep shearing time. The local families are throwing great feasts to celebrate. David hears about the partying and thinks he and his men deserve an invitation. So, he sends a message to the great local landowner Nabal. The message said, "Please be kind to my young men at this time of celebration and give anything you can find for them and for your servant David." Now, Nabal is such a sour, grumpy man that his own family avoids him. And Nabal replies, "Who is this David? Just another rebel against his master? Why should I give my bread and water and meat to him, or to anyone?" My brother and I acted this out over the summer in front of children. He was Nabal, I was Abigail. It was fun. When David hears of this, he is furious. No food. No recognition of all the help they have given Nabal. Just insults. Plus, Nabal might even turn them over to Saul. They've got to run again. David's not going to take this. "He has returned me evil for good," says David. "Every man belt on his sword. Not one male in his house will be alive by morning." 400 angry men charge towards Nabal's house. But Nabal has a wife, Abigail, who is everything that he is not. She is intelligent, beautiful, pious. So Nabal's shepherds go to her and say, "David and his men have been a wall of protection for us. But when they asked Nabal for food, he insulted them and sent them away. You've got to do something about this." Well, Abigail knows Nabal isn't going to listen to her either. So she takes matters into her own hands. She gathers together huge amounts of food, bread, wine, freshly slaughtered sheep's meat, grain, raisins, fig cakes, loads them onto donkeys, and heads up the road. And when David and his warriors see a beautiful woman with loads of good food, they come to a screeching halt. Abigail bows low to the ground and begs for forgiveness. She offers them the food, and then she reminds David, "God will surely make you king and give you a dynasty, because you are fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil is not to be found in you. And when you become king, I want you to have a clear conscience. I don't want you to shed blood without cause. You're a better man than that. And please, when you become king, remember me." David is captivated. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, and blessed be you who has saved me from blood guilt." He does a complete 180. Abigail goes home, waits for Nabal to sober up from his feasting, and then tells him exactly what she did. Nabal literally drops dead. When David hears the news, he sends for Abigail and makes her an offer of marriage. They ride off together into the sunset and live happily ever after, at least until the next marriage comes around. Abigail is a Christ figure. She lays her life on the line. Just how safe is it for her to come out there and confront David's army? She lays her life on the line to save her household on the one hand and David's soul on the other. She's a peacemaker. She's a mediator. She's a living example of how a soft answer turns away wrath. She overcomes evil with good. And for David, Abigail was a glimpse of God when he needed it the most. She is something of a Beatrice to his Dante. Her beauty stopped him in his tracks. Her message turned him back to God. May we, too, be that presence of God in other people's lives. May he give us words of wisdom, hearts of peace, and outrageous acts of forgiveness, so that other people can see the beauty of God in us and turn their lives back to God. Amen.
Amen.